what are the okay misconceptions about disability communities? I think that's one, that we're all different. But what are misconceptions that you see today against accessibility and disability communities?
Well, first off, I would say that it's so much better than when I was a kid. So for that, I'm very grateful. But the areas where I see that we still have a lot of work is there's still beliefs that if one part of you doesn't work, then all of you doesn't work.
Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one.
Welcome to your Wordless Podcast, the space where we redefine success, self-worth, and transformation. I am Nierras, the soul-centered architect of transformation, helping you unlock your highest potential and build a legacy beyond limits. Now, whether it is self-mastery, career breakthroughs, or wealth creation, this is where change begins. Now let's dive in.
Are you stuck in a job that you don't love, feeling like you're meant for more? It is not in your head, it is in your soul. I am Nierras, and I help high achievers like you break free from burnout, rewire self-doubt, and build a life aligned with purpose through coaching, hypnotherapy, and soul activation. Because let's face it, real wealth isn't just about money, it is about aligned and happy heart, mind, and soul. Now, remember, you are worthy and you are enough. Let's transform your life together. Visit www.thenierrasholisticlifestyle.com to begin. All right, out of the bat, can you share with us what was it like growing up as Jenna Udenberg?
Yeah, I grew up in rural Minnesota on beautiful Lake Superior. Totally was a tomboy. Loved being outside with my dad and brother and older siblings, but especially out on the fishing boat, whether it was inland lakes and catching small fish or saying here fishy fishy out on big Lake Superior as all the big waves would come rolling on with our smaller fishing boat. Had a black lab and I got to name it Blackie because I'm so creative at age 5. Thankfully I got more creative since you said in my bio that I was a music educator. So thankfully creativity came along eventually.
Hmm.
And yeah, I was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis. Back then, they called it juvenile rheumatoid arthritis when I was 7 years old, and I was in a manual wheelchair by age 8. And as you can imagine, life had its ups and downs, not only having a medical condition and being in a lot of pain and all the things, but dealing with other people's stigmas and other people's opinions of what disability is and what disability is not. And just really, navigating different waters. Sometimes they were my own waters, and sometimes they're the waters of others. So yeah, I mean, and I always say that I'm thankful that I became disabled as a child because you don't know any different. Early on, of course, I knew that I couldn't walk or I couldn't run anymore. I couldn't pretend to do cartwheels or, I could get out of my chair to go and build a snow fort when I wanted to, like I used to do, and those kinds of things. But you just learn how to live life differently. And the only thing that stops you is your mind or your attitude. Other people try to, but I'm an Udenberg and we're known to be stubborn because we're Stoic Scandinavians. But, I try to use my stubbornness for good because life throws us a lot of lemons. So we get to determine what we're going to do with them.
Just the message that I need this morning where I'm at the moment. I am in Malaysia, all the way in Southeast Asia. So
Wow.
I think most of us, we take things for granted. And every time I am scheduled to speak or somebody like you or anybody, right? I mean, we don't know their stories until we walk a mile in their shoes. And so I just
Mhm.
want to say thank you, Jenna, for showing up and showing out always. I know it isn't easy. Even today I was thinking, it's morning for me. Last 2 weeks have been really tough. And I lost my cat and everything that comes in between. Yeah, and also I got laid off, not very recently, but last year, and still navigating the waters of trying to set up my own thing, being an entrepreneur, and also juggling the my own insecurities, I would say, and what would people think of me, of where I am in life, right? And so thank you. I love getting to conversations like this And also, can you share with us why music and what made you pivot?
Great question. So, why music? I always felt like I was more like my oldest sister, and she played the cornet in high school, which is like a trumpet, just a little different make of it. And my other sister played the flute, and that was just too girly and dainty. And there's nothing about me that's girly and dainty. So I was like, I'm gonna go for the trumpet. Little did I know that trumpet players usually have, especially lead trumpet players, kind of have that arrogant attitude kind of a thing. And I met lots of them throughout my career and other middle of the road trumpet players too, of, awesome personalities and all the things. But I became a music educator because I had an amazing music teacher. I actually only had her for 1 year as my actual teacher, but she was my junior high band director. And she just saw me for me, and she supported me. And it was never an issue of, oh, that's right, Jenna's in a chair. Or, oh, yeah, well, the band could go and do this, but, we've got Jenna. Like, none of those things that other people put on me throughout my career, even in college, even as a professional, she never did. And so when there's somebody in your life that can show you your worth, that is priceless. And that stuck with me season after season in my life. Every time I came up against discrimination or oppression in my career, in my education, she was just that silent supporter that was there. And so she's still a good friend to this day. And it was hard when the school district came back and said they were no longer interested in um, accommodating my work from home order in the middle of the pandemic. That was rough because I was so used to people seeing my disability, right? They saw my wheelchair, they saw my arm that doesn't bend, they saw the scars on my body from all my orthopedic surgeries, but they didn't see my immune system. They didn't see my type 2 diabetes. They didn't see that I can catch a cold, and when I catch a cold, it lasts for 6 to 8 weeks because my system is so busy fighting itself with all my disease cycles. It doesn't have any energy to fight the common infections or viruses. And so that was just so interesting because kind of like you were, very vulnerably sharing, the word picture that came to me was like, we always have to feel like we're superheroes. And at some point we have to take our cape off. And sometimes it needs to be our choice to put that cape on. But so often when others put it on us, or that's our identity to try to hide in, then we forget how to take it off. And so when the school came back and said, you're no longer a music educator, it was like my whole identification just, well, then who am I? Right? Because I spend 60 hours a week doing this. I'm a single woman. Like, my career was my everything. And that's how I was raised, right? If you're not going to, don't do anything half baked, go,
Yeah,
all the way in, or don't
all the
bother
way.
doing it.
That's
And
right.
yeah. And so I was like, I don't know who I am anymore. And it didn't last long because I was given the title of accessibility educator, and I didn't really know what that meant at the time, but it was a flip of the script because you always feel like an educator needs to be in a school, right? Or
Yeah.
doing something in that vein, right? That concept, that
Mm-mm.
space. And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
I can be here, be educating on a podcast. I can become a published author. I can be a columnist in a local paper. But I'm still educating. And so then when I was given the amazing blessing of being a 2020 Bush Fellow, and that was happening tandem with me losing my career, in
Wow.
tandem with hey, everybody told me to write a book. And I've never had time. I've never had the finances to write my book, my story. And then, right, you get the imposter syndrome. Well, who am I to write my
That's
story?
right.
Why do I think that I'm all that in a bucket of fish? Right? And
Why
it's
should
like,
everybody listen to me? Why should
okay,
anybody listen to me? Yeah.
right? Why does anybody think my story is worth anything, right? Um, and so it was such a tender time and such a great time. And so even though the whole world was shut down and the rest of the world felt very isolated because everyone else was, they all became accessible to me. So even though in my Bush Fellowship, I was supposed to be touring the world. Like, I was supposed to go to 4 different places in America and to the country of Sweden that's known to be the most accessible country in the world. And it took me months of dreaming big, which is a part of the Bush Fellowship, to finally say, yes, I'm worth going to Berkeley, California, and wheeling in the places of Ed Roberts and Judy Heumann and all of the disability rights activists of America history. I'm worthy of going to a city that is known to be the most accessible in America. And like another advocate was there with her husband, and they were in a cafe, and some lady came up to her and was like, "Hey, what do you think about our city?" And I'm like, "Well, we feel different." And then in their story, they say way better than I do, but in their story, they're like, "Wow, we felt different because every door had a button. I could use every bathroom. Nobody stared or pointed or gossiped or whatever because I'm different." You know, it was very inclusive. It was very safe. It was very comforting. And she was like, "Wow, for me to feel foreign in a land that I should always feel welcomed in, and like this is how life should be." It like that story of hers just really stood out to me. And I was like, I want to feel awkward. I want to put myself in that similar space, right? Um, and so to push myself to those spaces and then have the whole world shut down. And it was just like, I was just shaking my fist in my belief system of, seriously, you made me do all this hard work and then now I don't get to do any of it. And it was like, but now the whole world's at home. And now everyone's on the internet. And now everyone's learning how to do these things. Everyone's learning how to Zoom. I got to meet and do more conferences and be around more people and more amazing connections than would have ever happened in my 5 trips. So there's always a reason, there's always a purpose, there's always the end goal, but maybe the plans that we make don't end up coming to fruition the way that we want, we hope that and a lot of times us Western Americans, for sure, we always want the easy button, right? We don't want the pruning season. We don't want that growth because
The
growth hurts
work.
and growth is hard, right? Yep. And I'm just kind of one of those weird personalities where I'm like, bring it on. But then there are times when you're just so exhausted from saying bring it on that you're like, Uncle, I just want to roll up in a ball and just sleep and eat comfort food
Leave
and
me in a corner
whatever,
and
right?
wake me up when, I don't know, September ends.
Right. Yep. Get me off this carousel. I want the world to just stop spinning so fast. I just need a break.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Educate me, please. This is me being very curious. Like, obviously, I am also, there's not much awareness, but now I'm learning so much from all the guests that I have on my show. So, I didn't know, I know Sweden, I know those part of Europe has they always rank the highest of their livability standards, right? I never knew that they're actually the most accessible country in the world. And now I know. I will put some effort into like really researching about these things because we don't know what's good. And also like even now I may be straying off topic a little bit. We talk about neurodivergence individuals, right? Only, at least for me, the last 5 years, or yeah, 5 years, that I got to know there's a difference. Autism's different, ADHD is different, and I don't think, at least in Asia, there's a law, or it's there are schools for those type of things, but we have yet to establish what country or what kind of a law that protects these people and how they move in society, right? So coming back to your point, and you said in the US there is a state which is the most accessible. Which one is that? Obviously I haven't done my homework.
Well, it wasn't a state. It was just a community
Right.
that my friend had told me about, and she said they were vacationing in Florida. And so the story
Okay,
of the
Florida.
city was that, yeah, that one of the elected city officials ran for, I believe it was city council, because his 2 children were disabled from birth. And after they passed away and he had time, he went and championed to make everything accessible. And so he turned that, hard story and loss into something that made a huge impact and still makes an impact to complete strangers who just happen upon their space and their place. So, um, Yeah, quite a legacy for him to leave behind, not only of his, but of his children. So
Well, I hope I'm doing a part by sharing your story. I went onto LinkedIn and I saw you are connected to Maxwell Ivy as well. So we are supposed to work on something on my website to make sure that it's more accessible for that. I mean, for the very thing that we're talking about. We have yet to schedule that. I think this is a good call out, a good reminder for me to set that meeting up with him. Okay, Jenna. So we're going to go
yes.
through some of the questions. This is the question from me. Talk to us about your nonprofit. It suggests going further than minimal expectations. What does it mean to you?
Hi, I'm Nierras, your host of the Your Worthless podcast. Now, if these real raw stories hit home, don't wait. Please follow, like, and subscribe my Spotify and YouTube. For bite-sized inspirational reels, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Don't wait. Your transformation starts today. Thank you, and bye for now.
Yeah, so Above and Beyond with You is based on going above and beyond the Americans with Disabilities Act. So in our country, it's against discrimination. It's to make sure that all public places or any spaces that get public funding are accessible, not only to people with mobility disabilities, but all categories of disability. But since I'm a wheelchair user, that's my wheelhouse. But so I
You and
stick
your
with,
world.
yeah,
You and your
I
wordplay.
I have to add the humor in because come on, it's all a part of it. At least with my personality.
Laughter is the best
But
medicine.
so the biggest right, absolutely. But with Above and Beyond with You, so many people believe that code means like that's the most they can do. But the ADA is like the floor. You can still do more and get to the ceiling. So that's the bare minimum of what you need to do. And the reality is like every body, every vessel that we're given is different. So a 17-inch toilet might not work for somebody, but an 18-inch one will. And so that's why code is 17 to 19 inches. But like I shared the other day with someone, is like the medical world keeps changing. I mean, every minute new inventions are happening, right? And so people are living longer. People are living that typically didn't thrive or survive, even a few years ago, let alone decades ago. And so we're just living with many more medical things, many other disabilities, and that the laws don't keep up with that. Industry doesn't keep up with that. And so you're always innovating, you're always changing, you're always needing other things. And the hardest part with, at least with the ADA, is that it's the largest unfunded mandate of the American government. So you tell all these businesses that they have to do X, Y, Z. Well, there's no funding anywhere for them to do that. But in the same respect, it's not like here in America where we also have like fire marshals that come in and inspect your occupancy rates and have you checked your smoke alarms and your extinguishers and your think of the right word, the sprinkler system, like keeping everybody safe. Have they done all those things? There's not disability police. There's not accessibility police. And so we have this really kind of messed up system where you have to go and you have to sue because you have to go through the Department of Justice. Well, what disabled person in our culture, we say spoons. If you don't have enough spoons to just do everyday life or do your everyday life and your medical life and work a job, and be a parent or, be a sibling or be a child or, like whatever all your different parts of your identity is, then also go have all these different suits because this restaurant doesn't have a bathroom that I can use. This haircut place I can't go in because there's nothing but stairs. Like, who has time for that? Right. And so it's just been so very frustrating. And yet it's so funny because I'm 45. And so I was born in 1980. And, that was a decade before the Americans with Disabilities Act. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I was diagnosed like 3 years before that was even a law. Like, it's weird for me to be able to say that. Like, I had these needs before there was even a law that acknowledged that people like me should be able to get a full education, should be able to be gainfully employed, should be able to marry whoever they want, should be able to ... right? And so back to the nonprofit that became, into being, again, part of my Bush Fellowship and the work that I got to do on me to become a better leader. The with you stands for the fact that we want to create change together. Transformative change doesn't happen unless you're working together and you have that accountability and you're sharing life and your stories are intertwining together and you're making that beautiful tapestry of life. It's not just hey, let's hire Jenna to come for a quick training. Yeah, it's awesome. We offer training, absolutely. But I want to make sure that you're being authentic with it, right? And not just like, how you doing on Wednesday when we're here doing this training, but in 3 weeks. How's it going? What questions do you have? What curious questions? What didn't you think about when we were together 3 weeks ago? 6 months from now, hey, just check it in. How's it going? Right? Like, it's about the relationships we create. And then the U, it's the capital U, not YOU, because when I was a teacher, of course, little kindergartners or 5-year-olds could not say Udenberg, right? I struggle with it. So I don't expect 5-year-olds to know how to say my last name. So they changed my name to Miss U. Well, then the funny story is a lot of the substitutes in the school would hear the little kids going, Miss you,
I
and
miss
they would think
you.
like, oh, I miss you,
You.
bye-bye. And I was like, no, that's my name, right? And so, yeah, after just finds me everywhere because it's like I can't make most of these stories up. They just happen.
Does this sense of gratitude and joy just, it washes over me just now because of what you just said? It made me realize and think how precious I am to be in this position right now, to be talking to you and to be sharing these stories with my audience and the world. As people, we in social media, we see one thing, we only see the rosy stuff, but people don't show their daily struggles or the challenges that they face. And the normal people, behind those very carefully curated posts and, content that they do. And so, but these are also the real things that people do in their life, like what you're doing, nonprofit, going above and beyond and interacting with kids, showing them that what you see on social media is not all there is. This is actually real. And for you to, find ways to connect with kids that way and just making sure and realizing, although, you had your times of accepting or really acknowledging your own true worth because of what the circumstances that, that happened that were, we always say life is happening for you, not to you, right? And I like that. And the reason why I name my podcast You're Worthless is because that was the narrative that I have been saying to myself at least since I got divorced. When I thought that I was gonna fly high by the age of 30 and then life is just gonna, settle itself. It's gonna be rainbows and sunshine after that. Only to find out that I got divorced and I had my my burnout from a very prestigious organization that I was attached with. And then started me from, it made me see things from different perspective or my life. So what's important? So if I were to D today or tomorrow, did I, live my best life up until this point? And yeah, I was, that's me just sharing my thoughts with what I'm doing so far at this point, and also with guests such as yourself. I've been talking to at least close to 300 people so far, and each one of them has their own stories, and they either are my therapist. I mean, I say therapist, quote unquote therapist, life coach, or just the messenger from God, because I believe nothing is a coincidence. Everything has its own place in time, and you're exactly where you're meant to be. So thank you, Jenna, for being there and for showing up and showing out. So, okay, next question. Your memoir, right? Within My Spokes. Now, how has sharing your own life, especially as someone using a wheelchair, helped shift perspectives around access and inclusion?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. writing my own story was like, at one point I had to like set it aside for 3 months because I was like, I'm so tired of hearing my own voice in my head. Like I'm tired of living my life over and over and over again. But I knew, I would always come back to it, right? Like that was just not only because it was a goal, I just knew that was part of my calling. That was a part of the journey that I was on. And it's been amazing having different people, whether it's complete strangers or family or acquaintances or neighbors that happen upon it. Like when it was first released, like it made sense, right? But, my book was published in July of 2023, so it's been out for a while. And so when people come and be like, hey, I just read your book, and I'm like, oh, that's right. There's a lot of my life that's just out there for anybody, all over the world to like now know about this, young woman on a random rural town in northern Minnesota. But it's been really good to have so many new connections and so many new relationships and finding ways, not like I share in the book about like how I'm a minimizer in how I try to connect with people, but more in the sense of like being able to be an encourager for people as they're on their journey of figuring out why is disability not a bad word, or what are the negative scripts that I keep perpetuating in my own head, whether they're
Mm.
disabled or non-disabled. And then also trying to flip the script because at least here there's a lot of pity because there's so much value put on being young, athletic, a certain size, right? A certain weight, a certain health, a certain look, just all the things we encounter in our world. And it's like, no, growing old and wise, and like there's a beauty in that. There's a beauty in being disabled. Like, if you truly get to come into disability culture, and if you're willing to put yourself in a place of discomfort where you're a minority person in that group when you're used to always being the majority. And I can say that freely because even though I've been disabled since childhood, I really didn't grow up in disability culture because in rural Minnesota, yes, there were other students that had other disabilities or maybe a couple wheelchair users during different segments of my career, or not career, but of my childhood. But it wasn't like going to a disability summer camp. It wasn't like going to wheelchair basketball tournaments. It wasn't like being around all these other people. I remember going to a tournament once, and it was only for my good friend Jamie, who inspired me to do something new. She was always the adventurous one, and I was the wallflower. And so I remember we were gone at a basketball tournament, and all of a sudden I was like hiding away in my bunk in this really cold cabin because it's the middle of January in Minnesota, so it's like freezing. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden I'm like cowering away, hiding from all these new girls, and I'm like, I don't know who you are, and you're talking, and I don't know. And also this girl who's like 4 years older than me, she just whips her legs off and hobbles to the bathroom. And I was like, I had never seen a prosthetic limb before then. And here's just this metal leg sit next to this bed across from me. And I was like, that's cool, but I don't know what to
Identif
do. Where do you
Yeah, I
look?
do yeah,
Like,
what's
I don't know, right? It's new. And again, it my reaction wasn't good or bad. It just was. Anytime you're in a new situation, like you don't know how you're going to interact. I'm an overthinker, so I try to think
yeah.
through all the things,
Oh my
4
god.
months in advance,
Yes.
right? But until you're in that moment, you're like, well, none of that prep work worked because I didn't know she had a prosthetic leg on, right? Like, and then plus I was like 12. So yeah. Um, but when I think back to it and like, being at a dance and like, when 80% of the dance floor are all in wheelchairs of some variation, and all the hotshot dudes are, whipping up on their two wheels and trying to get all the things because they're 16 years old and they think they're all that in a bucket of fish, and then it's like so many people think like, oh, because you're disabled, you're little and you're cute and you're always so saintly. And it's like, no, disabled people can be jerks too. Like, like we all have similar personalities. There's the alphas, there's the betas, there's the type A's, there's the type B's, and there's a hierarchy in disability culture. I hate that there is, but there is. And so it's just like anything in human nature, there's different experiences. And so the more that we can talk about that, the more that we can break those barriers down to just be like, hey, we're all disabled. So like let's work to make this world a better place. It's just interesting how the world
I
just
love
thinks
that.
like, oh well, that culture, well, they wouldn't have that. Well, why wouldn't they? It
Mm.
might look different. It might be
Mm-hmm.
celebrated different. It might have a different tradition. It might be worshipped in this culture and it might be looked down upon in this culture, but it
Right.
still exists because we're humans. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're all interesting and frustrating at the same time.
Yes. What are the okay misconceptions about, disability communities? I think that's one, that we're all different. But what are misconceptions that you see today against accessibility and disability communities?
Well, first off, I would say that it's so much better than when I was a kid. So for that, I'm very grateful. But the areas where I see that we still have a lot of work is there's still beliefs that if one part of you doesn't work, then all of you doesn't work.
Oh, that's a good one.
Mm.
That is a good one.
And that's so not true. And it's such an unconscious bias, right?
Yes.
Oh, she's in a chair. She must not be very highly educated.
Mm,
That person is blind. They must not care how they look. Or, like those are bad
yeah.
examples in some ways,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's just weird things that happen in our brain that like make the causation of because you're this, therefore you don't have that. Or because
Yeah.
you don't have that, therefore you don't have all these other things.
That's right.
I think that they still, and the hard part is too, is sometimes well intentioned people think that they're helping us or helping our cause. And really, the words or the message they're using is what is keeping us back. So they might have the money, they might have the
Wow.
stage, they might have the right words or the right connections, and they're thinking they're a great ally. And the reality is they haven't wheeled even a day in my wheels. So why are you speaking for me? Why are you the lawmaker that's making this inundated law or this outdated law, this antiquated law that makes it where I can't get married because as soon as I get married, I don't have personal care attendants because they synonymously think that my spouse is going to become
It's
my
gonna be,
caregiver.
yeah.
I
Is that
become their
right?
financial burden, whatever, right?
Right.
Like, oh, okay, because when you married your significant other, like there's just so
Bombastic
many
side
things that
eye
don't make
that
any
happens.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, um, and it's interesting, because I share this story in some of my inner circles of, my love language is gift giving. And so sometimes I'm probably one of the hardest people to give a gift to because when I give a gift, it's like there's a story behind it. Usually a joke. Sometimes it's, very heartfelt too, but there's a meaning behind it. There's more to it than just like, here, Nicolette, have this your favorite color sticking out. Like
Mm.
whatever, right? Like there's something else. But I've had people like give me gifts and it's like, "Oh, you forgot I'm a diabetic. Oh, you gave me a coffee cup, but I don't drink coffee. The coffee cup is so heavy that I can't lift it with my arthritic hands." Like, just like things that show that you don't know me. And so it's like, I
Yeah.
know that you thought that that was nice
Thoughtful.
and that right, that's great that you thought that, but then on the flip side, it's like, but if you're trying to be a blessing or you're trying to express something to someone,
Mm.
is it your own insecurities that are causing you to try to give something? Or is it truly authentically that you know this person, that you want to know this person, that you're going to take an extra moment to just call and be like, hey, I hear you're recovering from surgery. What can I do for you? I'd love to bring you a meal, or I'd love to put gas in your car, or, like whatever. Like, you tell me the one thing that would be the best gift for me to give you. And so I think, like I said, or like you said earlier about curious questions, I've learned that through some of my life coaches, through my Bush Fellowship. And I'm so glad for that, because I always felt like I'm going to do it wrong. So I won't ask you any questions. I'll just act like I know what we're talking about, or I'll act like XYZ. And it's like, no, because then you're walking away thinking like, I've seen you, I've heard you, and I understand you. And in reality, I've just been playing games because I'm so insecure that I don't have enough chutzpah to be like, so what's it like in Malaysia? So what was it like
It's
to go
hot.
through your divorce? Like very different than Minnesota, right? But, and the newest thing that I have heard is like, if you want to ask a non-disabled person that question, why do you feel you have the right to ask a disabled person? So if somebody's not going to come over to Nicolette and pat her on the head, why do people feel like they can come over and pat me on the head?
Ridiculous.
Right?
I got
Like,
I felt
or
sick in my stomach. I am so sorry. I feel like, wow. Okay, like gives them the right to do that. I
right?
feel like I want to
Mhm.
apologize on their behalf. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Or, well, how do you sleep? And it's one thing, right? If it's a little kid, like, hey, Miss You, do you sleep in your wheelchair? Like, kids are like totally cool with that, right? But if like a 50-year-old person comes to me and asks that, and they're being serious, not, because they maybe themselves have a disability, or, whatever, or they do it as a joke, like, there are just some lines that you just don't cross. But you wouldn't say that to a non-disabled person. So why would you say that? Or, meeting somebody on the street, like, so how do you go to the bathroom? Well, how do you go? It's all about how you ask and your intent.
That's right. That's right. Whew. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that, Jenna. I mean, wow. Thank you. Like, I feel, I know I advocate not going for external validation, but there are times in life that I know that I have to be careful because, number one, cultural differences. I'm in Asia, you're in States, and there are differences, and the communities that we are around, we're different. And so, at least for me, I was taught since I was a kid to respect first things first, whoever, regardless of their, hierarchical order in a community setting or in a work setting. And so, yeah, just see them as humans. And I love this thing. It sticks in my mind right now. The way Indians greet each other. Namaste, meaning my light in you recognizes my light in the light in you. So regardless of your situation or where you are, we are still humans, right? That's that baseline. Wow, I'm getting a lot of realization. So thank you for that, Jenna. So okay, we are coming to the end of the interview. I would like to ask you if there is, oh yeah, growing up in northern Minnesota, what does the outdoors teach us about inclusive design, and how can communities better open access for everyone? I mean, we did talk about that a little bit, but talk to us about your outdoors experiences. Jenna, growing up in northern Minnesota, you've highlighted challenges and triumphs of accessing rugged landscapes. Now, what does the outdoors teach us about inclusive designs?
Yes. So my Rio Mobility Firefly is an electric third wheel attachment that I got as part of my fellowship. And it's created by Rio Mobility in California. And I know there's many others out in other countries as well. So if you're a manually wheelchair user and you're looking to get around easier, check out electric third wheel attachments. And so that brought about a huge freedom for me. I can go on paved trails. I've been on limestone trails. I've been on gravel trails. I've gone through tunnels. I've been on bridges, which I love bridges, and been on snowmobile trails and lots of weird random adventures I would have never had before. But the coolest thing that I've ever noticed is how inclusive the biking community is, at least in the tri-state area up here around Lake Superior. everybody would look me in the eye. Everybody says hi or gives you the biking wave. Many times on every single trip, it's like, wow, I love, your ride, or I love whatever word they might use to describe the firefly because they don't, know what it's called. But it's never one of pity, or it's never one of like typical things. So then it's like you take the firefly off and we go have lunch in a restaurant, and it's like all that same, like, we're not going to make eye contact. If we don't make eye contact, she's not here. Or, they ask my person that I'm riding with, well, what would she like for lunch? Hi, I would
I am
like,
here.
like, right. So to be on the trail and always be seen and everybody saying hi, and like you're just seeing each other, even though it's just a quick blip, because I can go like up to 15 miles an hour on it, but it's just such a different community and just a different understanding of each other. And so, yeah, I mean, the ability to be outdoors is huge. The ability to be in those places that you've always just dreamed of, or like for me, like I was able to go to until I was like 6.5, 7, right? Um, and the reality is like I don't expect every single outdoor space to be accessible for me. Like I love the beauty of the North Shore because it is rugged, because it is made of clay and made of cliffs and made of all these cool things that creation just did, right? It's been around for a very long time. And so I don't expect them to come and bulldoze the trees and try to flatten the cliffs and try to put in a ramp that's up to code for XYZ. But if there are opportunities to make sure that a few of the waterfalls on the shore can be seen by anybody that wants to, no matter their ability or disability, let's do it. And then also let's promote it. So, I know your listeners are from all over. So it's like if you're doing something to make it more accessible or make it more inclusive, or like our mutual friend Max, it's like you have to promote it, because if you don't promote it, it's, kind of like the Field of Dreams movie from back in the 80s or 90s, right? If you build it, they will come. Well, they'll only come if you tell them about it.
That's right.
And I've been the butt of that many, many times in my life, because it was like, whoa, we did this work and we built this ramp, but then Jenna didn't come to this event. So we're never doing it again because that was a lot of work and Jenna didn't come. And it's like, no, then your intent was wrong. The intent should be, I want anybody and everybody who wants to come to this golf scramble to come to the golf scramble. I want anybody and everybody who wants to come to my website can learn and connect and engage with all the things that everybody else can do. So it's like, again, like we were sharing earlier, like if we just make the world about the human in all of its beauty and all of its frailty and all of its insecurities and all of its needs. And the reality is disabled people have needs just like everyone else. Nothing makes them special. Nothing makes them less than. And it all comes down to our words, right? So I hate special needs. I hate when we say, at least in America, how we say that's a special ed student. It's like, no, that's a student who happens to go to this place that's called special education, where they go to get the supports they need. That should just automatically be. But we haven't figured out as a society yet how to meet everybody's needs in a way that is holistic, instead of just, we're going to segregate you and put you with people like you, because therefore you'll be better, right? Because you're with people like you. And the reality is because we don't know what to do with people like you. So we're going to segregate you over here. And like I said earlier, I'm glad that we're beyond some of that,
Oh,
but that default is still in the ways that we talk and treat, and the way that we have our hiring practices, the way we are designing websites and social media, and the things that we highlight and the things that we promote, and the ways that we speak and the words that we use. And yes, we have to have grace because we all make mistakes. Like I've made probably a million of them tonight already. Like understanding the intent and the meaning behind someone. And then if there is a question, to ask the curious question, not make that assumption of, well, they meant this. Well, did they? So, yeah.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
I felt like God was speaking to me today. He is. So, Jenna,
Mhm.
what's exciting for you right now? What are you working on currently?
Too much and not enough is usually my answer. Things that bring me joy now is being on podcasts, sharing my story, and not just my story, but other people's stories, and like learning and building more relationships. I'm excited for my nonprofit. We went through strategic planning a few months ago. And so building and taking those next steps, we're in our third year. And so, yes, we're still young, and yes, we're still small, but I'm applying my community leadership and inviting other people into the work and doing it. Um, I don't like these two words, but these are the words that keep coming to me is, strategically and methodically, and not in a bad way, but just in a let's do this right the first time. Let's not haphazardly or quickly throw something together just to throw something together, because that's not a quality product. That's not a quality relationship. That's not a healthy relationship to be building upon. So we're just really focusing on creating that foundation, and then figuring out what in that foundation can we replicate. And then also always making sure that we're authentic. And, like I made the wheelhouse joke earlier, right? Like my disability is a mobility disability. I also have an invisible disability with my immune system. And so making sure we're always calling people in from different parts of disability culture and community to share their story, because I'm not going to talk for someone like Max. I'm going to call Max and be like, Max, you tell your story, you tell your
That's
experience,
right. Yeah.
you get these listeners to go and make their websites accessible. Like I can throw out the little fish to go check out Max, right? But I don't have the ability to go and do that work because I'm not called to it. It's not my lived experience. It's not my truth and authenticity. So I really love those times. I'm also finishing up the Shannon Institute, Shannon Leadership Institute. And so that's kind of bittersweet because that ends in November. So writing
Mm.
my renewal plan, figuring out, I'm in a pruning season, Nicolette. Like Jenna in 6 months will probably look, feel, act, and be doing different things than that. And I'm excited. I have my first speaking gig that's farther out in my region coming up in a couple of weeks, and I get to tell the story and share my former student stories because I had an adaptive music program, and what were the struggles in creating it, what were the you know not just the benefits of creating that, but what were the life lessons, and how do we continue making all of the world have less barriers. And so that's the other thing, going back to one of your previous questions, is for people to understand that it's not my medical condition that disables me, it's the inaccessible environments in which people put me, or I put myself.
What a powerful conversation. Well, thank you for that, Jenna. Now, we're going to spin this off to a self worth question. So, the self worth question for you today is many people struggle with feelings of worthlessness at some point in their lives. What are some common triggers for these feelings, and how can individuals cope with them effectively?
I think for me, this may or may not answer your question, so you can ask another question if need be. For me, I'm very relational based. And so I've gone through a lot of different relationships in life to finally find ones that are healthy and mutually beneficial, and that there has to be solid give and take. And so the former me that felt worthless and maybe had different internal and external voices that were telling me that I was, or that I should be, and maybe it wasn't necessarily that blatant, but it was, you should be grateful that you have dot dot dot. You should be, like, well, you're just disabled. So therefore you need to put on your happy face and do a little dance for people. Or, like just some of those scripts that are just not healthy and not true. They're just lies. And yet, also with codependency, right? Like figuring out who we are in ourself and figuring out our own self-worth. And like I said earlier, I'm an Udenberg and we're stubborn. And so if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to prove to you that I can do it 12 times over and I can tie the little bow on top of it. Unless I think you're baiting me, and then I'm just going to be a little stink and I'm going to be like, oh, you want a purple bow? That's not really a bow. Like I have that other side of me as well.
Yes.
And so I think for each person, you just got to know your personality, and you got to have your people, your tribe, your people that get you and protect you fiercely because you protect them fiercely. And it might take a long time to find those people because we all have to go through a certain part of our journey to go, I am worth this, and so are you. And we're going to be there to remind each other when the world wants to tell us that we're not. And we're going to be encouraged to dig deep. And yep, today you need to be in a corner eating ice cream, snuggled in your blankie for the whole day. Well, I'm going to stand outside your door and make sure nobody messes with you because I know that my dear friend needs to just go and eat her ice cream and be all snuggly. So finding your people.
What is your heart's greatest wish?
I don't know, this is my greatest wish, but this is what popped in my head as soon as you asked it. That people would stop being dumb, myself included. Our words matter. They can bring life, they can bring healing, or they can bring hurt and harm and wounds or death. So our words matter, our intentions matter, how we live life matters, and we're all going to screw it up, right? Like I said, we're all going to be stupid at some point, but it's what we do with it. When we know better, we need to do better.
Okay, Jenna, if you could create a quote right now, a quote for you to leave to the audience listening in the world as your legacy, what would it be?
I would say my family always taught me to leave a place better than I found it, but in my leadership work and in how my lived experience looks, I want to leave people better than when I found them because I hope in turn they'll do the same with me.
Excuse me. That's a good one.
All good.
All right. Thank you. So, okay, how can people reach out to you?
Easiest way is to find our website, above and beyond with you, capital U.org. We're also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And you can find my book on Amazon or wherever you buy your books within my spokes.
Awesome. I'll be sure to include those in the show notes. So, Jenna, we've come to the tail end of the interview. What is your last message to our listeners tuning in today?
Keep asking curious questions, have grace for yourself and others, and reach out to other people's lived stories and experiences that are different than yours, but don't claim them as your own. Always acknowledge that they belong to someone else, and you can share the story that you learned from them, but you can't always share their story.
Casually dropping golden nuggets here from start to finish. Well, that is a wrap on today's inspiring episode with Jenna Udenberg. Jenna, I'd like to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your story, your wisdom, and for continuing to uplift the world and the community around you. For our listeners, this has been Your Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Remember, if you've ever felt worthless, you are not alone. Your soul chose to be here to matter. And for that reason alone, you are worthy. A huge thank you to you again, Jenna, and to all of you for listening. Until next time, I am Nierras. Keep shining, keep growing, and always remember, you are worthy and you are enough. See you in the next episode. Thank you, Jenna, for your wisdom and your time.
Thank you.
And cut. Allow me, Jenna, to introduce you to all of our listeners. First off, good evening to you, Jenna. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Jenna, I'd like to introduce you to all of my listeners, and I'd like to introduce myself to you formally. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled Your Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, today I'm going to read a bit of your introduction first, and then we can get right into the conversation where we first left off. So, here goes. Welcome, everyone. This is Jenna Udenberg here in the show with us, a dedicated disability advocate, accessibility educator, author, and 2020 Bush Fellow. Now, Gemma's journey spans nearly 2 decades as a music educator, followed by a powerful pivot into advocacy after spending most of her life using a wheelchair due to juvenile idiopathic arthritis. Now, she's the founder of the nonprofit Above and Beyond with You, through which she amplifies voices and works to transform accessibility standards, especially in rural communities like our hometown in northern Minnesota. Now, her acclaimed memoir, Within My Spokes, offers a raw and inspiring chronicle of growing up navigating life on wheels, sharing stories of resilience, inclusion, and the joy found in outdoor exploration. Now, Jenna's message is simple yet profound. True inclusion isn't just about meeting legal requirements, it's about creating spaces where everyone feels celebrated and valued. Today, we will dig into a transition from educator to change maker, the insights that earned her a Bush Fellowship, and what it really takes to go above and beyond when designing inclusive communities. Again, for the second time, welcome to the show, Jenna.
Thank you, Colette. I'm excited to be here. We've already had
Okay.
fun. We'll have more.
Yes.
Love this episode? Now, transformation doesn't end here. Head on to at holistic.lifestyle_with Nick, that is on my Instagram, or head on to my website www.denierras.holisticlifestyle.com for more info on my coaching framework, which is the Worthy, Authentic, and Abundant Framework, digital guides, and my upcoming events such as retreats and master classes and workshops. Now, I also do intuitive readings where we get to check on your soul path. And if you're also wanting